Alright, so I looked on YouTube and I could not find a single setup video for the SK-720 that was worth anything. So I figured since I made it through it, I'm going to explain what I did on this video, so hopefully it helps somebody else. Before we get started, I just want to say I'm using 100% high voltage, so there is no regulator, and as you can see, I'm using the Multigov as well as mounting the SK-720 in the rear, because people who have Kasamas have said that they've had better luck with the gyro being mounted in the rear. So this has been flown and tested. It's not perfect, but it's getting there. So basically what I want to talk about as I move this over is this is a mess. This is just basically for testing right now. Once I know everything is right, I'm going to rewire it so it looks pretty. But for the basics, we'll zoom in here to the power bus, and you'll see all these wires that go out on the right here, D. Well, this is pretty much in the manual, no big deal. These all go out to the SK-720, and as you'll see down over here, when used with the power bus, all these is signal wires. Maybe one of them is powering, one or two of them. So they'll go across the top and down the side, and you have a manual, so this will show you exactly which holes they go in. I'm not going to go into that too much because that's not the hard part of this. What the hard part is when you're working with the Multigov, trying to figure out which wires go where. This is what I want to get into. And again, it's not that hard once you figure it out, but it was in the beginning for me, kind of trial and error. So what I was concerned with is I wasn't sure whether I was going to use high voltage because I have some other servos, or if I was going to use a what do you call it? A regulator. So I started off using a regulator instead of this jumper, and I had some low voltage servos for my tail and my throttle. So what I did was I was running two wires out here from this. If you can see, it says power low voltage and then power high voltage. So basically I was taking a regulator and I was going out from this high voltage, because this power coming in to the power bus is only going to power without this jumper. All it's going to power is this lower half. So this top half is not connected to this lower half. You have to connect it with this jumper in order to power up here. Or you can have power come out of this high voltage, power high voltage, go into a regulator, get regulated down from the LiPo power down to your 4.8 or your 5.2, whatever it is, and then back in to this power low voltage, which will then power everything up top, which could be, I have my tail down here, but you could have your low voltage tail up here, your throttle, and then everything else that's going to be powering the SK-720, as well as your sensors and everything else. So that's what you can do. I'm sure there's probably another way to do it. That's how I did it. I didn't like it, so I changed everything out and went to straight high voltage. It's one less thing to be in, to worry about. So when you do that, you use the jumper. Now, the jumper goes from the low voltage, from the high voltage to the low voltage. In the center, there's three, as I can see, if I can get over here. Here you go. So that's going to go in the center across, jumping, powering the top. Now for the top, basically what that does now is I can put tail either place, because now everything's high voltage, but I just decided to put it down here. These are your servos, so basically these are your servo wires coming in or going out. So L is left, R is right, SW C is center. So this is your elevator and your aileron and pitch. wires here coming right from your servos. And again, what these are is basically, I'm using this right here is just getting power. So going into IOD, and again, I don't know if this is 100% right, and use this at your own risk, but it's working for me. I'm using the D just to power my Switchglo Pro, which needs some power in order to fire up. So that's where I got it. The other thing is I used, let's see here, so IoT, that's for throttle. So basically I have the IoT actually is going to the governor. So that is going on the Multigov from IoT throttle to the very left. If the Multigov is facing up, starting from left to right, IoT enters here at the very far left. The next one over is going to IOB, which I believe is for your well, that's going to IOB. I'll tell you why in a second. I've got a wiring diagram over here, which I did, which is kind of ugly, but it does work. And when I put this together, I had good reason. And so anyway, if you can see, it's probably not very easy to see right now, but there we go, a little bit more. So basically you got your Multigov here, from the left going over IO to throttle, then the next one over is going to IOB, the next one over is your RPM sensor, and then the next one over is your throttle servo. So over here, again, this is your IO to IoT, this is to IO, let's focus, IOB, RPM sensor, and then your throttle servo. So that is what worked for me. And again, in the manual under the bus, we'll show you exactly how these plug in and go out to your SK-720. Let's talk real quick about how I mounted it. For 90, because this is a real pain in the ass, I'm getting high vibrations. For the 90, for this Kasama, there's not going to be any way for me to get rid of these vibrations. So I'll probably be happy if I get it down to a 7. So basically I've mounted the rear Kasama gyro mount. I'm using, per the instructions, the 3mm foam tape cut in half with about an 1/8 inch. I would have been a little bit further, but unfortunately the Kasama mount is too small. So if you look, the actual mount is smaller than the steel plate in the gyro itself. So I had to push them a little bit closer to make it more stable. So basically I have the gyro mount, the 3mm tape cut in half with about an 1/8 inch space in between it, the steel plate, the thin tape that came with the gyro, and the gyro itself. So that's it. This does fly. I haven't had any problems with it. And now I'm just tuning it. Thanks.